Hey everyone, welcome back to Manga Minute. I'm thrilled to share my latest recap video with you. If you missed the previous one, no worries, just take a quick peek in the description below for the link. Now, let's dive right in and enjoy.
As Miso absorbed the full story, she realized the enormity of what had transpired. She understood that Yeon-Myeong was the person who had saved her. Mirio turned her attention towards Yeon-Myeong and addressed him with a hint of irritation. She was clearly not pleased with how long he was to touch her sister. Miso, however, reassured her sister, explaining that Yeon-Myeong was in deep concentration and it was best to let him be until he completed his task. Yeon-Myeong, in his intense focus, marveled at the situation. He observed that the internal energy present was almost like a miraculous substance, exceeding the body's natural capacity to absorb. He noted that if left unaddressed, the energy would dissipate on its own. However, he saw this as a perfect opportunity to absorb all the cold energy and attempt to open the closed meridians. He felt one of his meridians opening and mused about how many would eventually fill with this newfound energy. To his amazement, he succeeded in opening 4 meridians, far surpassing his expectations. This sudden influx of internal energy was beyond anything he had imagined, even though it temporarily decreased his immediate achievements. He concluded that he would need to supplement his strength by drinking poison, a thought that underscored the gravity of his actions. When Yeon-Myeong finally opened his eyes, he was startled to find that Mirio's sister had regained consciousness. Miso, noticing his reaction, quickly reassured him that Mirio had explained everything to her, and she expressed her deep gratitude for his help. Yeon-Myeong, trying to lighten the awkwardness, humbly replied that it was his duty as the family head to take care of his family. He tried to downplay his heroic act, but the atmosphere remained tense. Suddenly, their father burst into the room, panic evident in his voice as he called out for Miso and Mirio. His eyes widened in shock upon seeing a man in his daughter's room. Enraged and protective, he demanded to know what Yeon-Myeong had done to his daughters. Mirio and Miso quickly tried to calm their father, insisting in unison that the situation was not as he feared. Mirio's father bowed deeply, his voice filled with regret as he apologized. He admitted his mistake, explaining that he hadn't realized Yeon-Myeong was the family head who had saved his daughter. He expressed his deep remorse for his disrespectful behavior. Yeon-Myeong, ever understanding, assured him that it was a reasonable reaction given the circumstances. He knew anyone would have misunderstood the situation. Mirio's father continued, his gratitude evident. He shared the relief of knowing his daughters would outlive him, recounting his history with a woman from the Tang clan. He spoke of the love that had led him to settle here and the tragic loss of his wife to a terminal illness. He had spent all his savings searching for a cure for his daughters, only to find his efforts in vain. His voice, now filled with deep gratitude, conveyed his appreciation for Yeon-Myeong's intervention. He pledged his loyalty, promising to rush to Yeon-Myeong's aid whenever called upon. Yeon-Myeong responded with humility, stating that he only did what was necessary. He glanced around, noting the quietness of the trading company. Mirio's father explained that since the Tang clan's decline and the Black Death Alliance's takeover, they rarely ventured outside the city. Yeon-Myeong acknowledged this, suggesting they discuss it further at a later time. He then made his farewells, indicating his departure. However, Mirio interjected, surprised that Yeon-Myeong was leaving so soon. She emphasized that they hadn't properly thanked him yet. Miso also expressed her gratitude once more, assuring him that their family would never forget his kindness. As Yeon-Myeong left, Mirio waved and shouted her thanks, promising that she would repay his kindness someday. As Yeon-Myeong departed, Miso watched him go, murmuring her concern about the family head's well-being. She noticed something amiss in his demeanor, suspecting that he might have been unsettled by something during her treatment. Mirio, catching Miso's murmur, was curious about her sister's concern. Miso speculated that perhaps something had gone wrong while Yeon-Myeong was treating her terminal condition. Her thoughts were filled with worry and uncertainty. Mirio, ever the tease, couldn't resist poking fun at her sister. She suggested that Miso might be feeling sad to see Yeon-Myeong leave. Miso, flustered, denied it, though her reaction betrayed her true feelings. Mirio reassured her sister, explaining that her reaction was perfectly natural. She pointed out that anyone in Miso's position might feel similarly. She tried to comfort Miso, emphasizing her beauty and suggesting that Yeon-Myeong was likely conscious of her as well. As Yeon-Myeong headed back towards the main house, he couldn't help but be awestruck by Miso's beauty. His thoughts wandered, imagining a future where he married her, even picturing grandchildren. He marveled at how nervous he felt just by looking at her, wondering if this was what an ordinary life felt like. He hoped for a chance to visit her again. However, his bright daydreams were soon overshadowed by a looming concern. The Black Death Alliance, a persistent thorn in his side, disrupted his musings. Yeon-Myeong pondered the threat posed by their leader Yu Gil-jun. Although they hadn't directly caused the family's downfall like the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord, their subordinates' constant intrusions and meddling were a serious nuisance. Yeon-Myeong knew that as long as the Black Death Alliance remained in Sichuan province, an inevitable clash was on the horizon. Meanwhile, in the Black Death Alliance territory in Sichuan province, inside the confines of Simhwa Hall, Yeon-Myeong reacted sharply to a report from her subordinate. The Tang clan's influence had been growing uncontrollably, and she was troubled by the situation. She fumed over the perceived cowardice of those around her, noting that both the new head and family head of the Tang clan were said to be at or near the Fire Mastery realm. Yet all she heard was to watch and wait. In her current state, she felt powerless to avenge Mak In-hoo and Jong Yin-song. Determined to turn the tide, she devised a cunning plan. If she couldn't act directly, she would use the upcoming Sichuan gathering to her advantage. This gathering would be the perfect opportunity to strike. Steeling herself, Yeon-Myeong murmured with resolve. The cries for revenge from Mak In-hoo haunted her, and her anger would not subside until the Tang clan was eradicated. Confident in her plan's potential, she promised retribution, declaring that a stage would be prepared for the Tang clan's downfall. Tang Jiak was deeply concerned about their uncertain future. He pressed his uncle, the second elder Tang Myung-shin, for guidance. Ever since Tang Jihai had become the head of the family, their position had weakened significantly. Tang Myung-shin responded with frustration, reminding Tang Jiak that he had brought this situation upon himself. He pointed towards Moonchon, blaming him for their current predicament. Moonchon's reckless behavior, making enemies without gauging their strength, had contributed to their downfall. Tang Myung-shin was bitter that all he had built was being ruined by Jiak and his father. Moonchon, enraged and nursing a broken arm, seethed inwardly. He despised the old man who couldn't even stand up to the head of the Tang family. His thoughts turned to revenge against Tang Yeon-Myeong, vowing to heal his arm and settle the score. Tang Jiak, focused on their next steps, questioned what they should do. It was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain their force, much like the other elders. Tang Myung-shin, acknowledging the gravity of their situation, made a decisive declaration. They would leave the family. The guard pointed towards a warehouse, explaining that it was the storage place for the Tang family's extreme poisons and 10 toxins. Yeon-Myeong considered the situation, recalling that this place had originally been managed by the third elder. Due to neglect, however, it had been transferred to him and the poison hall. Upon seeing Yeon-Myeong, the guard saluted, greeting him respectfully. Yeon-Myeong humbly acknowledged their hard work. As they prepared to enter, a guard presented an item to Yeon-Myeong, explaining its purpose. It was a poison-repelling pearl, designed to block the toxic air inside the warehouse. By holding it in one's mouth, it could filter out most poisons and prevent them from invading the body. Yeon-Myeong, however, declined the offer. He pointed out the impracticality of using an item that many people, including the third elder, had likely held and sucked on. Despite the guard's assurances that the pearl was cleaned after each use, Yeon-Myeong remained firm in his decision. He confidently stated that he would not get poisoned without the pearl, much to the guard's concern for his safety. Despite the guard's persistent worry, Yeon-Myeong's resolve was unshaken. In the end, the guard relented, allowing Yeon-Myeong to enter the warehouse without the poison-repelling pearl. Observing the well-maintained interior of the warehouse where the 10 toxins were stored, Yeon-Myeong pondered over its pristine condition. He understood why the guards had been concerned before allowing him entry. Ordinary warriors would perish instantly in the thick poison fog without a poison-repelling pearl. Despite his weakened inner strength from the effects of the poison vein stimulation technique, sealing his meridians, Yeon-Myeong noted the concentrated poisonous air was distinctly different. Yet, his mastery of the poison refining heart technique rendered the environment nearly pure to him. Feeling rejuvenated in the poison bath, Yeon-Myeong recognized it wasn't enough to restore his full martial prowess. According to family rules, personal consumption of the 10 toxins was forbidden. He considered seeking out Tang Ijin to refine more potent poisons, should the recipe remain. Suddenly, a strange intuition gripped him. he sensed an anomaly, a distortion in the airflow that resembled a formation. Yeon-Myeong's keen eyes scanned his surroundings, confirming his suspicion. Firmly grasping his blade, he moved swiftly to investigate. With a precise swing, he cut through the subtle formation in the Tang family's poison storage. As the passage revealed itself, Yeon-Myeong exclaimed in surprise, "A passage!" As Yeon-Myeong navigated through the tight passages within the magician's formation, he discovered a talisman inscribed with the words, "Prohibited" and "Sealed." Recognizing it as distinctly different from the Jegal family's formations, he identified it as the work of a magician. Memories from his past life surfaced. His master had been acquainted with magicians who were consumed by their obsession with sorcery and immortality. They delved into forbidden arts, often creating intricate formations for their experiments. Yeon-Myeong recalled being thrust into such a formation as part of his training, where he faced unknown beasts in a relentless test of survival. Magicians, he knew, were inherently self-centered, driven solely by their interests and ambitions. Contemplating the presence of a magician's formation within the Tang family's domain puzzled Yeon-Myeong. Unlike his master's disdain for such pursuits, there must have been something within the Tang family that attracted the attention of a magician. The fact that toxic power still leaked despite being sealed with countless talismans intrigued him greatly. His initial plan to transcribe the recipe for the 10 toxins took a backseat to this newfound mystery. Suddenly, a voice echoed in his mind, detecting his presence and dismissing any notion of inconspicuousness. It hinted at a release long awaited, indifferent to the passage of time. Yeon-Myeong's curiosity piqued further. With determination, he pressed on deeper into the unknown, eager to uncover the secrets hidden within the Tang family's enigmatic magician's formation. As Yeon-Myeong reached the end of the passage, he discovered the hidden jar wrapped in layers of talismans, ominously protecting what was rumored to be the 10th of the Tang family's 10 toxins, thought to be lost. Intrigued, he attempted to touch the jar, only to be forcefully repelled by an intense rebound. Recognizing the formidable protective enchantment around it, Yeon-Myeong resolved to dismantle each talisman with precision. With skillful strikes, he methodically cut through the talismans one by one. Despite feeling the strain from his weakened inner strength due to the poison vein stimulation technique, he persisted until all barriers were removed. The air thickened with potent poison as he finally opened the jar's lid, revealing its mysterious contents. A voice echoed jubilantly from within the jar, celebrating the release from its long-bound confinement. However, as the last talisman was breached, the jar exploded violently, throwing Yeon-Myeong back with force. From the shattered remains emerged a snake-like creature that launched itself towards him with startling speed. Yeon-Myeong, caught off guard but ready for battle, quickly assumed a defensive stance, preparing to counter the unexpected attack. The creature, now revealed as Jingo Poison, a blue-horned white snake of legendary toxicity, coiled around Yeon-Myeong's arm. Despite its threatening demeanor, it expressed a peculiar admiration for his swift actions in releasing it. Yet, its tone turned hostile as it asserted its dominance, proclaiming itself as the pinnacle of poison. Yeon-Myeong, undeterred and maintaining his composure, demanded to know what exactly he had freed from the jar. The blue-horned white snake, feeling disrespected by his question, responded grimly, asserting its identity and its formidable reputation as a creature of lethal toxicity and power. Yeon-Myeong faced off against Jingo Poison, the blue-horned white snake, engaged in a battle of wills and strengths. The snake, impressed by Yeon-Myeong's ability to momentarily block its lethal poison with his internal energy, underestimated the young warrior's resolve. As it attempted to overwhelm him with its venomous assault, the snake was taken aback to sense a familiar aura emanating from Yeon-Myeong, a poison-absorbing aura, typically associated with the Wanderer Saint. Startled by this revelation, Jingo Poison questioned Yeon-Myeong's connection to the revered figure. Yeon-Myeong simply stated that the Wanderer Saint was his ancestor, causing the snake to panic. Realizing that Yeon-Myeong could absorb its poison and potentially destroy it, Jingo Poison pleaded desperately for mercy, urging him to cease absorbing its essence. Yeon-Myeong, however, displayed a cunning demeanor in response. Mocking the snake's sudden change in attitude when faced with disadvantage, he declared his intention to absorb all of its poison without hesitation. The snake, realizing the dire situation it was in, hastily proposed a deal in a last-ditch effort to save itself. Offering to become Yeon-Myeong's guardian spirit in exchange for freedom from its seal, Jingo poison tempted him with promises of enhancing his internal energy with its potent poison. It argued that a continuous supply of poison from its essence would be more beneficial than absorbing it all at once. Despite the tempting offer, Yeon-Myeong remained steadfast in his decision. He rejected the snake's proposal, expressing no interest in forming an alliance with an enemy. With confidence in his abilities to replenish poison from other sources, he made it clear that sparing Jingo poison was not an option. As the standoff continued, the snake realized that its fate rested solely in Yeon-Myeong's hands, and the young warrior showed no signs of wavering from his resolve to neutralize the threat posed by Jingo poison once and for all. Jingo, the blue-horned white snake, pleaded desperately for mercy from Yeon-Myeong, appealing to his compassion after centuries of confinement in poison and isolation. Yeon-Myeong, despite his initial resolve to destroy the snake, ultimately relented, agreeing to spare its life under the condition that Jingo become his guardian spirit and obey him without question. Accepting Jingo's plea, Yeon-Myeong cautiously prepared to bind their agreement. Unfamiliar with spirit arts, he questioned Jingo about the process. Jingo reassured him that no special actions were required on his part. With a spirit binding seal, a small, intricate bead, Jingo explained that holding it would establish a link between their souls, thereby making him Yeon-Myeong's guardian spirit. Yeon-Myeong, intrigued yet wary, examined the spirit binding seal offered by Jingo, recognizing the gravity of the pact he was about to enter into. As he took the bead from Jingo, he prepared himself mentally for the bond that would bind the powerful spirit to him, knowing that this decision would have significant consequences for his future endeavors. Outside the warehouse, the guards waited anxiously, their expressions filled with concern and apprehension. It had been a while since Yeon-Myeong, the family head, had entered, and their worries grew with each passing moment. They debated among themselves about whether they should intervene, knowing the risks of entering such a dangerous place without permission. Tang Jiaqui, feeling the urgency to ensure Yeon-Myeong's safety, argued passionately that they couldn't afford to stand idly by while the family head might be in trouble. Despite the rules against entering without authorization, he insisted that they prioritize Yeon-Myeong's well-being over any potential punishment. As Tang Jiaqui prepared to breach the entrance, a sudden burst of blinding light erupted from inside the warehouse, accompanied by a powerful vibration that shook the surrounding area. The guards, taken aback by the unexpected display, shouted in alarm and disbelief. They could see a radiant aura enveloping Yeon-Myeong, who seemed to be at the center of this extraordinary phenomenon. With hearts racing and uncertainty gripping them, the guards anxiously called out to Yeon-Myeong, desperate for reassurance that he was safe amidst the mysterious and awe-inspiring scene unfolding before their eyes. As Yeon-Myeong contemplated the newfound power resonating within him, the dragon-scale guardian spirit aura, he marveled at its tangible presence compared to ordinary spiritual energies. The decision to make Jingo, the poison-absorbing snake, his guardian spirit and the subsequent filling of all 12 meridians had unlocked an extraordinary fortune for him. Reflecting on the morning's events that led to this transformation, Yeon-Myeong recognized the overwhelming attention this power would draw and resolved to control its output carefully. However, Jingo's nonchalant remark about the Wanderer Saint's openness with his power startled Yeon-Myeong. He scolded Jingo for risking exposure, emphasizing the need for secrecy despite the protective aura's strength. Jingo defended himself, asserting that only he could reveal his presence and that Yeon-Myeong's formidable aura alone would deter any potential threats, though he agreed that it was indeed conspicuous. Expressing a desire for a simpler life away from constant attention, Yeon-Myeong lamented his wish for normalcy. Jingo, intrigued by Yeon-Myeong's mention of this time, probed deeper, questioning whether Yeon-Myeong had experienced life and death cycles. This prompted Yeon-Myeong to inquire about Jingo's meaning, to which the snake cryptically suggested that their shared power marked them with significant destinies akin to their ancestors, including the legendary Wanderer Saint. Yeon-Myeong's inquiry into Jingo's past revealed a troubling history of exploitation by a previous master who had worked the snake tirelessly until his death. Jingo had been sealed away afterward, deemed too dangerous even for a spirit of his caliber. As Yeon-Myeong reflected on this connection with the exorcist and the possible parallels to his ancestor and master, he began to speculate about the reasons behind his current existence and the awakening of memories from his past life. The idea that his destiny might be intertwined with his past lives and significant figures like the Wanderer Saint lingered in his thoughts, suggesting deeper mysteries yet to unfold. Just as Yeon-Myeong delved into these ponderings, a guard's urgent report shattered his contemplation. The news of an attack by the demonic cult near the main house in Sichuan jolted him. Surprised and alarmed, Yeon-Myeong's mind raced with questions and concerns about the safety of his family and the implications of such an unexpected threat. Supporting his bleeding and wounded master as they staggered through the streets of Chengdu, Hyunso felt the weight of their dire situation. Around them, the oppressive presence of Jang Tichen and his formidable followers from the Black Death sect and the demonic cult loomed large. The streets once familiar now felt like a trap, surrounded by enemies bent on capturing them. Jang Tichen, with a sneer on his face, blocked their escape route with mocking words. He taunted them about their futile attempt to seek aid from the Tang clan in Sichuan, emphasizing how isolated and vulnerable their position had become. His threats of delivering them to his leader for the sake of ultimate martial arts prowess hung heavily in the air, promising violence and mutilation if they resisted. Hyunso, despite his own injuries, knew they were severely outnumbered and outmatched. His concern for his master's safety clashed with the grim reality of their predicament. Every option seemed perilous, and the urgency to find a way out intensified as Jang Tichen's forces closed in. Suddenly, amidst the tense standoff, a group of martial artists emerged, led by a figure exuding a commanding presence. Their arrival cut through the tension like a knife, drawing both surprise and hope from those cornered by the forces of Jang Tichen's Black Death sect and the demonic cult. Yeon-Myeong, recognizable by his aura of authority and the dragon scale shimmering around him, quickly assessed the situation. His sharp eyes took in the scene. The wounded martial artists of the Orthodox sect, led by their determined disciple Hyunso, surrounded by a vastly superior enemy force. The urgency of the moment was clear. With a decisive gesture, Yeon-Myeong signaled his subordinates. They moved swiftly, positioning themselves to shield and escort the Orthodox sect members to safety. Despite being outnumbered, their resolve and the formidable spirit they carried spoke volumes. It was a testament to their training and loyalty to the Tang clan. Hyunso, relieved yet wary, recognized the Tang clan's martial artists by their distinctive robes. His heart swelled with gratitude and renewed hope, even as the gravity of their situation loomed large. The odds remained daunting, but with the arrival of unexpected allies, a glimmer of possibility emerged in the face of overwhelming adversity. Seeing the dire condition of Hyunso and Taehyo, Yeon-Myeong's voice cut through the chaotic scene with authority. His eyes flickered with concern as he addressed the exhausted disciples of the Orthodox sect. Tang Wonjin, take care of the injured, Yeon-Myeong commanded, his tone firm yet compassionate. Stepping forward confidently, Tang Wonjin nodded in acknowledgement. I'll handle this. Trust me, he assured Hyunso, his voice steady despite the urgency of their predicament. Confused and torn between the urgency of their escape and the need to assist their comrades at the front, Hyunso hesitated. But there are so many of them chasing us, he protested, gesturing towards the approaching horde of martial artists. Tang Wonjin's expression softened with reassurance. You don't need to worry, he replied calmly, his gaze unwavering. Just trust me. His words carried a quiet confidence that momentarily stilled Hyunso's anxious heart. With a nod of reluctant acceptance, Hyunso reluctantly withdrew, placing his faith in the unspoken assurance of the Tang clan's capability. Jang Tichen, known for his arrogance and prowess, sneered at Yeon-Myeong. His words dripped with disdain as he mocked the young man who dared to challenge them. One of his subordinates whispered urgently, Palace Lord, I believe it's him. The new family head of the Tang clan, the one who won their recent contest. A smirk curled on Jang Tichen's lips. Ah, the pretty boy himself, he sneered. Do you truly intend to challenge us? Such audacity, spared by the leader's grace. Very well, I'll put an end to you once and for all. You were the instigators, after all, so the leader will not fault us for. Before he could finish his boast, Jang Tichen abruptly toppled from his horse, silenced by an unseen force. With unwavering composure, Yeon-Myeong's voice cut through the tension. Listening to your nonsense is tiresome, he murmured, his gaze steady and resolute. Mercy from your leader? Uprooting us? Try it if you dare. But know this, I'll uproot you first. Chaos erupted as Jang Tichen, the imposing palace lord of the demonic cult, suddenly collapsed from his horse. His stunned subordinates surrounded him, murmuring in disbelief at his sudden demise. Palace Lord, he's gone? One of his followers stammered, eyes wide with shock. Another warrior interjected. When did he even throw the poison needles? I didn't see him move. Another muttered, bewildered by the swift turn of events. Meanwhile, Yeon-Myeong, the newly recognized family head of the Tang clan, wasted no time. With practiced precision, he swiftly gathered a handful of poison needles and launched them into the air with a flick of his wrist. A nearby warrior exclaimed, "Did he just throw a barrage of poison needles into the air?" His warning went unheeded as the deadly rain of needles descended upon Jang Tichen's followers. Despite their attempts to defend themselves, Yeon-Myeong's onslaught was relentless. One by one, the warriors fell to the ground, incapacitated by the potent poison coursing through their bodies. Yeon-Myeong's swift and calculated actions were turning the tide against the forces of the demonic cult. Surprisingly, he realized he hadn't coated the needles with poison, yet the effect on his foes was just as devastating as if he had. Jingo, his newfound guardian spirit, explained the phenomenon with pride. He boasted that his potent poison had permeated the needles upon contact, rendering them lethal despite Yeon-Myeong's oversight. In the chaotic aftermath of the battle, the stunned survivors of the demonic cult struggled to comprehend the swift and deadly precision of Yeon-Myeong's techniques. Hyunso, witnessing the devastation wrought by Yeon-Myeong's hand, could only wonder if this was the same formidable figure who had reputedly defeated 300 fighters from the Dark Moon Sword sect, as his master had recounted. Among the survivors, disbelief and fear spread like wildfire. They marveled at how a single individual could dispatch so many adversaries with such ease. Some questioned the supposed decline of the Tang family, unable to reconcile the image of this formidable warrior with any rumors they had heard. Despite their shock, one courageous warrior stepped forward, rallying his comrades to regroup and confront Yeon-Myeong head-on. He reasoned that Yeon-Myeong, despite his prowess, couldn't sustain such intense techniques without sufficient chi from being in the fire realm. With determination, he led a charge towards Yeon-Myeong, confident that they could overpower him through sheer numbers and strategy. Swiftly closing the distance, the warrior unleashed a powerful strike aimed directly at Yeon-Myeong, taunting him as he struck. His confidence in their numerical advantage bolstered his conviction that they could bring down this seemingly unstoppable force from the Tang clan. In that tense moment, Yoonho's eyes widened in disbelief as Yeon-Myeong effortlessly blocked the man's vicious axe swing with his bare hand. A ripple of shock passed through the gathered enemies as they watched in awe. With a calm yet commanding gesture, Yeon-Myeong shattered the axe into pieces as if it were mere glass, demonstrating a power that seemed beyond mortal comprehension. As the shards of the shattered weapon clattered to the ground, the man who had wielded it stared in utter disbelief. His voice trembled as he muttered, almost to himself, "Fend off my attack with your bare hands?" Yeon-Myeong stood unperturbed amidst the chaos, his demeanor one of eerie confidence. A faint, mocking smile played on his lips as he surveyed the now uncertain faces of his adversaries. With a subtle shift in posture, he poised himself to finish what had been started, his next move hanging in the air like a silent challenge to all who dared oppose him. Witnessing Yeon-Myeong's astonishing battle prowess, Hyunso couldn't help but marvel silently. "I heard rumors that the Tang family's secret techniques were lost after the Heaven's Brilliance demon invasion," he reflected, his thoughts racing amidst the chaos of the battlefield. "But their strength remains formidable. If they can rout the Black Death Alliance, perhaps we can stand against the demonic cult as well." As Yeon-Myeong swiftly dispatched the last of the enemy warriors, his voice cut through the tension. "Why are you still here?" he asked, his tone a mix of curiosity and command. Caught off guard, Hyunso chuckled nervously. Haha, I was simply amazed by the young master's prowess in battle." Yeon-Myeong regarded him thoughtfully. "Is that so? Let's continue this conversation at the main house," he suggested, already preparing to depart from the scene. Surveying the aftermath of the fierce clash, Hyunso's expression grew serious. "We must tread carefully with the Tang family," he mused to himself. "We cannot afford to make enemies of them." In the tranquil outskirts of Sichuan province, Hyunso and his master sat down to enjoy a meal, relieved that their journey had been uneventful thus far. The fall of the Tang family had left the region relatively peaceful, a rare respite in troubled times. But despite the serene surroundings, Hyunso couldn't shake off a sense of unease as he noticed his master's somber expression, his thoughts evidently elsewhere. Their meal was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a stranger, whose casual remark about the food drew their attention. Hyunso, caught off guard by the man's unexpected proximity, couldn't help but wonder about his identity. His curiosity turned to concern when Taehyo identified the stranger as a member of the Yu family, a name synonymous with the feared Black Death Alliance. Realization dawned on Hyunso as he realized the implications of their chance encounter. They had chosen this remote inn precisely to avoid any entanglements with the notorious unorthodox alliance. Yet fate had brought them face to face with none other than a prominent figure from their most formidable adversary. The calm of the inn suddenly felt precarious, overshadowed by the presence of a man whose influence could sway the delicate balance of power in an instant. Yu Gil-jun leaned back, his gaze fixed on Taehyo with a hint of amusement playing on his lips. "Apologies if my presence interrupted your meal," he remarked casually, swirling his drink thoughtfully. "What brings you to my corner of Sichuan? Is the Black Death Alliance of any interest to you?" His eyes flicked to Taehyo, assessing. "Ah, it seems you've attained the Fire Realm stage. Sending someone of your caliber suggests this is no trivial visit." Taehyo met his gaze evenly. "I have no dealings with the Black Death Alliance. Are you alone here? I don't see your associates." A smirk tugged at Yu Gil-jun's features. "Alone? Do you think numbers decide a match?" His tone was teasing, challenging. "If you wish, I'm open to a friendly spar." Taehyo's reply was dry, matching the mockery. "I've managed to survive twice as long as you." Yu Gil-jun chuckled lightly, his sarcasm evident. "Well then, should I congratulate you on that feat?" Taehyo's temper flared, his voice edged with defiance. "In Fire Realm battles, accumulated chi is crucial. Can you withstand the chi cultivated through my sex techniques?" Hyunso, sensing the escalating tension, anxiously mused. "This is unusual." Master seems enraged. Is he really planning to fight here? Yu Gil-jun's expression darkened, a grim resolve settling over his features. Such arrogance. Qingcheng, Amei, even Manhwa, I eradicated them all a decade ago. Gongdong sect survived only because of its distant location from Sichuan. If you doubt me, come with me. There's a nearby spot suitable for a light spar. Attempting to dissuade his master, Hyunso pleaded, "Master, please, we're not here to fight." Taehyo's resolve hardened, stung by the provocation. "How can I accept such ridicule? Don't stop me. I'll prove that our martial arts reign supreme." And so, driven by pride and challenge, master and disciple found themselves drawn into a fateful confrontation against the formidable lord of the Black Death Alliance. Upon hearing the tale, Yeon-Myeong exclaimed, "A fight? That's quite different from what I expected." Hyunso nodded solemnly. "Yes, those who pursued us caught up," he recounted, recalling the intense battle. "And the lord of the Black Death Alliance. He was truly fearsome." Taehyo's command was clear as he signaled Hyunso to step back, his eyes fixed intensely on Yu Gil-jun. The clash between them was swift and precise, each movement calculated and executed with deadly intent. Yu Gil-jun, renowned for his swordsmanship, acknowledged Taehyo's skill with a grudging respect, marveling at the innovative use of true energy to deflect his attacks. On the sidelines, Hyunso watched with awe and concern, unable to fully comprehend the speed and finesse of their exchanges. It was a battle that transcended mere physical prowess, a duel between two masters who had ascended to the Fire Realm, where every move was a strategic calculation and every strike held the potential to decide the outcome. Taehyo faced Yu Gil-jun with determination etched on his features, his movements fluid and precise as he unleashed the ultimate technique of his sect, the cursed demon sword technique. The clash of their energies sent shockwaves through the air, creating a swirling vortex of dust and debris around them. Hyunso observed with growing confidence as Taehyo pushed Yu Gil-jun on the defensive, each strike calculated to break through the formidable defense of the Lord of the Black Death Alliance. The tide seemed to turn in Taehyo's favor, sparking a glimmer of hope that he might prevail against such a renowned adversary. However, Taehyo soon realized the depth of Yu Gil-jun's skill. Despite his powerful attacks, they were deftly countered with a precision that spoke of mastery. Frustration and disbelief washed over Taehyo as he recognized Yu Gil-jun's deliberate strategy, playing with his opponent's expectations, toying with him despite being the leader of a fearsome alliance. Undeterred, Taehyo gathered his resolve and unleashed another devastating onslaught, channeling all his chi into a final, desperate bid to end Yu Gil-jun's arrogance once and for all. The resulting explosion of energy sent shockwaves through the battlefield, shaking the very ground they stood upon. Yu Gil-jun's eyes gleamed with exhilaration as he watched Taehyo unleash his ultimate prowess, urging him to continue pushing the limits. Meanwhile, Hyunso looked on in astonishment as his master employed the forbidden technique of the cursed demon sword, a skill rumored to be reserved for dire situations. The sheer power and devastation it unleashed were beyond anything he had imagined. Breathing heavily, Tihyo stood victorious amidst the aftermath of his attack, his chest heaving with exhaustion. "Did you see that, Hyunso?" he exclaimed triumphantly. "We've defeated the Yu family scum." Hyunso nodded fervently, concern etched on his face as he supported Tihyo. "Yes, master, but we must leave here quickly," he urged, mindful of the potential repercussions of their confrontation with the Lord of the Black Death Alliance. As the dust settled, Tihyo and Hyunso's disbelief grew palpable when they saw Yu Gil-jun standing unharmed. His acknowledgement of Tihyo's technique, even imitating it effortlessly, added another layer of astonishment. Despite the name, Cursed Demon Sword Technique, Yu Gil-jun demonstrated that its power transcended mere demonic energy, aligning it with the formidable martial arts of the Gongdong sect. Hyunso recognized the familiar movements with a mix of shock and confusion, questioning how Yu Gil-jun could replicate their sect's revered technique without invoking demonic chi. Yu Gil-jun's mocking response further challenged their understanding, emphasizing the technique's principles over its supposed requirements. With a wry smile, Yu Gil-jun renamed the technique on the spot, honoring its origin while twisting its nature into something new, the blessed true art. In a decisive move, he unleashed the transformed technique upon Tihyo and Hyunso, the power of which threatened to overwhelm them both.